Forks was no longer a safe place. Since the battle with the newborns, since Renesmee's arrival, since the last time the Volturi looked north, everything had changed. Bella thought that after her transformation, the worst was over, but danger never truly left. It only changed form. And this time, it had a familiar face. Victoria wasn't dead, or at least not the real threat she represented. Before being destroyed, she left a legacy. One last move, a second group of newborns, hidden, wild, trained for a single purpose, to cause the greatest pain possible. Not to the Cullens, to Bella. It was fast, too fast. Charlie was driving home from the police station, driving down the lonely road that bordered the forest as always. He had no chance to react. A roar, a flash, shattered glass, blood, and darkness. Bella arrived minutes later. The smell of blood hit her like a wall. But it wasn't the uncontrolled burn of her early days. Now she knew who she was, and who she had to save. Charlie! Her father's body lay on the asphalt, his torso soaked in red, his head tilted, his pulse barely there. Carlisle was already running toward her from behind, but Bella dropped to her knees beside her father before he could reach them. Dad, look at me. Charlie couldn't speak. He just looked at her, confused, as if he still thought it was all a nightmare. And Bella knew. Carlisle arrived and checked the wounds. His expression darkened. The damage is internal. There's no time. Can you save him? Carlisle hesitated, not without turning him. But Bella already knew, and she wasn't going to wait. She leaned in without asking, without consulting, without thinking, only deciding. And with a gentleness that seemed incompatible with her fangs, she bit her father. Charlie's scream split the night in two. Bella pulled back, her face covered in tears she could no longer shed. Edward arrived and stood frozen at what she had done. Bella, but she didn't look at him. She only watched as her father's body convulsed, as the venom began its slow, infernal work. For the next 3 days, she didn't move from his side. Carlisle supported her silently. Esme tried to comfort her. Renesmee, too young to understand, only watched her with sad eyes. And Edward was torn between love and disbelief. You took his life. I saved his life. Are you sure he would have wanted this? Bella didn't answer, because she didn't know. And that was what tore her apart the most. On the third day, Charlie opened his eyes, and the world changed forever. At first, he didn't speak. He only listened, looked at his hands, felt his strength, discovered his speed, and fought the thirst. Carlisle explained everything. Bella too. Even Edward, with great effort, offered him understanding. But Charlie said nothing. He only watched his daughter. For hours. When he finally spoke, it was at night. Bella was sitting with him in the Cullen living room, in silence. Charlie was staring at the fire that gave no heat. How much did you know before doing this to me? Bella pressed her lips. All of it. He nodded. And you still did it? Bella swallowed, needlessly. I was losing you. Charlie looked at her for the first time with true emotion. Not anger, not love, desolation. I'm not your father now. I'm something else. You'll always be my father. He didn't respond, but in his eyes, there was something Bella had never seen before in him. Fear. The pack found out. Jacob didn't speak to her for weeks. Sam sent a message. This breaks every agreement. She is not to set foot on the reservation again. The Volturi found out too. Alice saw it before the letter arrived. A black envelope. Sealed. Threatening. Ara wouldn't use violence immediately. Not yet. But the message was clear. We'd like to meet the new member of your family. It would be best to introduce him soon if you want to avoid misunderstandings. Charlie, meanwhile, was learning, struggling with his thirst, refusing to hunt humans, but still not accepting his new life. He couldn't look at his reflection without flinching. He couldn't hug Renesmee without trembling. He couldn't look at Bella without wondering if he still loved her as before, or if he could even feel the same at all. And then, one night, Bella found him in the forest, alone, hunting by himself, not animals, not humans, hunting, silence. The same silence inside him, the same silence he carried every time he closed his eyes and remembered how he died, and how his daughter brought him back to life, in a world where he no longer knew if he had a place. Charlie no longer dreamed, but sometimes in the quiet moments after hunting, when the night was so thick that even his vampire senses couldn't make out the horizon, he remembered. The smell of coffee in the Forks kitchen, the crunch of boots on the porch, Bella's laughter when she was a child. And he wondered if that man, the old Charlie Swan, still lived in some corner of this silent, lethal creature he had become. He didn't talk much, but he listened. To Carlyle, when he spoke about ethics. To Esme, when she treated him like a son. To Emmett, who treated him like a hunting buddy. And to Edward, who didn't treat him at all. He barely tolerated him, not out of hatred, but out of fear, because Charlie was the only vampire whose mind he couldn't read. Bella's shield, he had inherited it. When the Volturi sent the second letter, silence was no longer an option. Volterra awaits. The new one will present himself. The alternative is war. Bella trembled as she read it. Edward struck the wall until it splintered. Charlie simply said, "Let them come." But Carlyle knew it wasn't that simple. War wasn't just blood and ashes. It was destruction for all. "We have to show them that Charlie isn't a threat," he proposed. "And if that's not enough," Rosalie asked. Edward looked at Bella. "Then we'll have to fight." Alice had a vision. Fragments, screams, black cloaks, Renesmee crying, Bella kneeling over bodies. But what disturbed her most was seeing Charlie standing in the middle of it all, covered in blood, not knowing if it was from enemies or his own family. And then Charlie spoke. "I'm not hiding." "Dad, you don't have to," Bella began. "Yes, I do, because this isn't just about me. It's about making sure the Cullens, you, Renesmee, everyone can sleep without every shadow feeling like a threat." "We don't sleep," Emmett said, trying to lighten the mood. Charlie ignored him. "I'm going to Volterra." Everyone fell silent. "And if I have to die again to end this story, I will." Bella looked at him wide-eyed, speechless, but she wasn't the one who answered. Edward did. "You won't go alone." The journey was long. Volterra greeted them with its eternal gloom. Aro, from his throne, opened his arms as they entered. "Dear Chief Swan, at last, you honor us with your presence." "Cut the crap, Aro," Charlie said fearlessly. "You know who I am and what I'm not. I'm not a weapon. I'm not a project. And if you thought to make me an example, you'd better think again." Aro laughed, but his eyes gleamed with calculation. "And what are you, then?" Charlie stared him down. "A father." Aro studied him. Silence. Then he said, "I will grant you the benefit of the doubt, for now." But everyone in the room knew it was just a fancy way of saying, "You haven't escaped yet." When they returned to Forks, the sky was clear for the first time in weeks. Charlie stopped to look at the sun. It didn't shine on his skin like it did on the others. It had a different light, more human. Bella approached him. "I lost you once. I couldn't bear to lose you again." Charlie didn't look at her, but he spoke. "I'm not the same. None of us are. Do you think I can be happy like this?" Bella thought. "No, but you can find meaning, like you did before, as a cop, as a father." Charlie looked at her then, and for the first time since he'd awakened, he smiled. Just a little, just enough, but it was enough. That night, atop the Cullen house, Charlie sat alone, staring into the darkness. The thirst was still there, the power, the fear, but also something else, will. And in his chest, where once beat the heart of a tired man, now burned a different flame, not of blood, of purpose. Because Charlie Swan had died, but what was reborn in his place would prove that even monsters can choose to be fathers, protectors, and heroes. And if the Volturi ever came for him again, they wouldn't find the confused man Bella saved in the woods. They'd find the vampire who had chosen to fight for his family to the very end.